You're watching a 14-year-old girl being dragged out of the emperor's room. She's not walking. Two servants grip her arms, her feet trailing lifeless across the cold marble floor. Her eyes are wide open, yet completely empty, like something inside her has been shattered forever. Just 3 days ago, that same girl was laughing in the room beside yours. This morning they summoned her. Now she's broken, hollow. A servant spots you staring and yanks you back inside. "Don't look," she hisses. "Never look. And when they come for you, don't fight." Rome, 39 AD. You are 14 years old. You've been locked inside the place they call the Garden of Venus for 6 days. And today you finally learned what really happens to the girls who get called. Your father had called it the greatest honor. Your mother cried the day the carriage arrived. The neighbors watched with open envy as you climbed the hill toward the imperial palace. No one told you the truth. No one warned you that the most powerful man alive ran a cold, efficient system that selected young women, recorded their names and details on wax tablets, and called them one by one to his chambers. And when they came out, they were never the same again. This is the true story of what Caligula did in his palace. The most terrifying part isn't the cruelty he committed. It's that no one stopped him. Not the senators, not the guards, not even the parents who willingly handed their daughters over at the palace gates. Everyone knew, and everyone stayed silent. Caligula was never born a monster. He was manufactured by the same empire that would later fear him. In 19 AD, a 7-year-old boy runs through a Roman military camp in a tiny soldier's uniform. The legionaries adore him and call him Caligula, Little Boots. He is the son of Rome's greatest general. 1 year later, his father dies, officially from illness, whispered to be poison ordered by Emperor Tiberius. At 8 years old, the machine begins destroying his family. His mother is dragged away and starved in exile. His brothers are imprisoned, tortured, and erased. Young Caligula watches it all. By 31 AD, he is the last survivor, 19 years old and utterly alone. Summoned to Capri, he spends 6 years at the side of Rome's greatest monster, learning how to break human beings. In 37 AD, Tiberius dies and Caligula becomes emperor. Rome celebrates. For 7 months he seems perfect, freeing prisoners, staging games, giving money to the people. Then a violent fever strikes. When he wakes, something inside him has shattered forever. Imperial officials spread across the city and provinces, selecting young women of noble birth for the palace. Detailed records were kept. This was not random cruelty, it was a terrifyingly efficient system like inventory management. Officials worked in pairs with imperial seals, meeting quotas and filing reports. Families did not resist. Being chosen was presented as the highest honor. Parents dressed their daughters in white and sent them away, swallowing their grief in silence. They called it the Garden of Venus, a beautiful name for a place that looked like paradise but was a prison of silk curtains, soft beds, perfume, and smiling servants. Everything felt wrong. The girls could not leave, could not contact their families, and simply waited in uncertainty. Footsteps in the night meant another girl was taken. The next morning she returned quieter, emptier, or not at all. Servants reported every tear, every whisper. Friendships were broken. Isolation was the design. The endless waiting became the torture itself. Psychologist Martin Seligman later called this learned helplessness. When fighting changes nothing, the mind eventually stops trying and stops feeling. The girls were being broken through luxury that hid cruelty and uncertainty that never ended. By the time they were summoned, most had already surrendered. But Caligula wanted to break every powerful man in Rome too. At imperial banquets, he would publicly humiliate senators and generals by choosing their wives and leading them away while the husbands sat powerless, pretending nothing was happening. He turned the events into theaters of shame and complicity. Once you stayed silent at that table, you became part of the machine, unable to rebel without exposing yourself. While destroying lives, Caligula made one fatal mistake. He mocked Cassius Chaerea, a respected Praetorian Guard officer, for his high-pitched voice, assigning him humiliating passwords daily. Chaerea, a soldier who stood armed beside the emperor, finally snapped. On January 24, 41 AD, in a narrow underground corridor, Charia struck first. 30 stab wounds later, the emperor was dead. The conspirators ended the bloodline that same day. The new Emperor Claudius faced a problem. What to do with the girls still in the Garden of Venus? Admitting the truth would expose Rome's shame. So he chose silence. The girls were sent home quietly with gifts, bribes for forgetting. Most families accepted. Their daughters were now seen as damaged. Silence became the only option. But the girls never forgot. Some flinched at footsteps, woke screaming from nightmares, or stopped speaking entirely, lost in memories they could never share. Fragments of their stories survived in hidden writings, long after Claudius ordered the records burned. The Garden of Venus is gone now, buried under centuries of construction. Only traces remain. Rome wanted to forget, yet you cannot erase what people carry inside. The girl from the beginning of this story was real. History never recorded her name. She was just a number on a tablet. But she existed. She had dreams, a family, and someone who loved her. That is what empires do. They turn people into numbers and build systems so efficient that no one feels responsible. Everyone had an excuse. Following orders, protecting families, accepting honor. And the machine kept running. The only thing that stopped Caligula was one soldier humiliated one time too many. If Charia had waited longer, the machine might have run for decades more. Systems of cruelty don't fall because they are evil. They fall by accident. When one person finally says, "Enough," the Garden of Venus operated for 4 years. 4 years of young lives processed like inventory. 4 years of fear and silence. That is why these stories matter. Not because they are ancient history, but because the same patterns repeat. And the only thing that ever stops them is someone who refuses to stay quiet. This is Crown and Dagger. We do not sanitize history. We show you what actually happened. Because the past is not dead. It is waiting in the dark, waiting for someone to speak.